The summer holidays had arrived once more, and the air around Curran Cottage buzzed with warmth and freedom. Julian, Dick, Anne, and George were back together again, with Timmy wagging his tail excitedly, ready for whatever adventure destiny had lined up this time. Aunt Fanny had gone away to visit a sick relative, leaving the children in the care of a friendly but slightly absent-minded cook named Joanna. Life felt simple and joyful, at least at first. One bright morning, while exploring the rocky beach below the Curran Cliffs, the children stumbled upon a surprise. Someone had been camping there. The ashes of a fire, a few footprints, and even a torn scarf lay scattered about. They tried to guess who it might be, but the sea breeze soon pushed the mystery aside as they returned to the cottage for lunch. George, however, couldn't shake a strange feeling. Timmy, usually cheerful and calm, had been growling occasionally at the cliffs, as if sensing someone watching them. That night, while everyone slept, Timmy suddenly erupted into fierce barking. George sat up instantly. Timmy never barked without reason. She hurried downstairs and found that someone had tried to break in through the kitchen window. Julian and Dick ran out to check the grounds, but whoever it was had vanished into the darkness. The next morning brought unexpected news. A girl, scruffy, barefoot, and wild-haired, was caught trying to sneak food from the pantry. Her name was Jo, short for Johanna. She was agile like a cat, bold as fire, and sharp-tongued, yet strangely charming. She admitted she'd been living rough with her father and his two dangerous companions, who were involved in criminal activities. They'd hidden in a cave near the beach while plotting something mysterious. The five didn't trust Jo entirely, but beneath her tough exterior, Anne sensed a lonely, frightened girl desperately needing kindness. Dick and Julian questioned her cautiously, while George remained wary. Timmy, surprisingly, took to Jo almost immediately, licking her hands and wagging his tail. George didn't like that at all. Jealousy flared inside her. Timmy was hers, not this stranger's. But Jo had information they couldn't ignore. She told them that her father and his gang were hunting for a certain important man, someone who knew a secret they desperately wanted. The five grew uneasy. Who was this mystery man? Why were the criminals searching for him? And most importantly, how did this involve them? Before they could ask more, Jo suddenly disappeared. 2 days later, the mystery turned dangerous. When George went out to walk Timmy in the evening, someone grabbed her. A cloth was thrown over her face, and everything went dark. Hours later, the others received a chilling note. "We have the girl. If you want her back unharmed, bring us the man we're looking for." Shock crashed through the group. George, brave, stubborn George, kidnapped. For the first time, Julian felt a deep sense of helplessness, but there was no time to waste. They had to find her. But where was she? Just then, Jo appeared again, breathless and terrified. She told them everything. George had been taken by her father's gang by mistake. They had meant to kidnap someone else. The children realized the truth like a slap. They were now involved in something far bigger than they understood. Jo promised to help them rescue George. Though they weren't sure whether to trust her, they had no choice. Time was running out. Jo guided them along secret paths, old tunnels, narrow cliff routes only she knew. She moved quickly and silently, her street-taught agility proving invaluable. Timmy stayed close to her, following her every step, something that annoyed George even when she wasn't present. The trail eventually led to a derelict house on the coastline, hidden behind a thick cluster of bushes. Inside, George was locked in a small room. She had fought bravely and angrily, but the men were too strong. Hearing footsteps, she tensed, expecting danger. But then she heard a familiar bark. "Timmy," she cried. Moments later, the door burst open. Timmy leaped onto George, licking her face wildly. Julian, Dick, and Anne rushed in, relief washing over them. Even Jo smiled shyly from behind. But the danger wasn't over. The criminals had returned. Heavy footsteps thundered down the corridor. Voices shouted. The children froze, trapped inside the old house. Quick thinking was needed. Jo acted instantly. She led them through a hidden gap in the wall, a narrow escape route she had once used herself. They crawled through the darkness, hearing the gang closing in, cursing loudly. The narrow passage opened into an abandoned well outside the house. They climbed out one by one, scratched and exhausted but free. They ran. Across the rough ground, through thorny bushes, over broken fences, until the sound of the gang's furious shouts faded behind them. When they finally reached the cliffs overlooking the sea, their lungs burned with relief. But the criminals were not giving up. The five narrowly escaped again by hiding inside a cave near the beach. Jo used her cleverness to lay false trails, confusing the gang long enough for the children to alert the police. By dawn, the criminals were cornered and arrested. Jo's father was taken into custody, and she watched silently, torn between sadness and relief. Even though her father was a criminal, he had been all she had in the world. Aunt Fanny, returning home soon after, opened her arms to the exhausted but victorious children. She thanked Jo sincerely for saving George. Jo, for the first time, felt someone treat her with warmth instead of suspicion. With no family left to take care of her, Jo was taken in by a kind family connected to the police, people who promised to raise her properly, give her schooling, and give her a future she never thought possible. Before leaving, she hugged each of the five awkwardly. She saved George last. "I'm sorry for everything," she whispered. George hesitated, then nodded, giving Jo a rare smile. "You were brave," she said. "Thanks for helping." Timmy barked happily, as if sealing a new friendship. That evening, the famous five sat once more on the cliffs overlooking the calm sea. The wind ruffled their hair. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the water gold. Another adventure had come to a close, dangerous, yes, but unforgettable. And as always, the five had faced it together, proving once again that courage and friendship were stronger than any villain plan. Far away, Jo looked out of the window of her new home. She missed the five already, but she knew she would see them again someday. Because adventure always had a way of finding the famous five, and the people connected to them.